I want you all to think about this question. What do you do during the day? Most of you have been asked this question before, and when asked to list what you do, I'm sure you've said you go to class, you go on the computer, you sleep, you eat. The usual. Everyone's answer is a little different, but I'm sure most of you will say you hang out with your friends. Well, that's what I'm here to talk about. Not about friends, but about why humans need interaction. Human interaction. A lot can be said about human interaction, but I'm going to focus on why infants need interaction and why adults need interaction. Infants and interaction. The first 3 years of a child's life are valuable in the development of the brain, a child's linguistic skills, and a child's social skills. Brain development. Our brain develops at an early age, therefore it is important for infants to start learning and understanding things early, so they can start the process for healthy brain development. As children grow and learn, synapses form between the neurons in the brain. These synapses wire the brain and are what shape how we think. As children grow older, the brain goes through a process called pruning, which is when the brain eliminates the synapses that don't have a purpose and keeps the ones that do. This is why healthy brain stimulation and human interaction are important. The human interaction promotes the brain stimulation, and human interaction also reinforces what has a purpose. During these same 3 years, a child's linguistic skills develop. These skills are developed by parents talking to their children. It is shown that children know 300 more words at the age of 2 when parents are social and speak to their children than when parents rarely speak to them. It is valuable for children to learn language and sentences so their brain can develop correctly. An example would be Jeannie. In California in 1970, a 13-year-old girl was found in the basement of her home. Her father had trapped her there since she was 3, and she was kept in isolation for 10 years, with no human interaction except for when she was given food. When they found her, no one could believe that she was 13. Her body was not developed like the body of a 13-year-old, and she could not comprehend most words. The only words she could say were "stop it" and "no more." When she was found, she was brought to the Children's Hospital in Los Angeles, California, and they scanned her brain, and they found that most of the left side of her brain was not actually functioning, which the left side of our brain actually focuses more on linguistics, like talking, speaking, sentence formation. As time went on, she did learn more words, but she was never able to string words together into sentence form. And they came up with a theory that when we're young, we learn how to form sentences. Like, we can learn words all our lives, but when we're young, we have to learn how to string them together. My next point is babies learn social skills. Children learn social skills early in life. They learn by watching humans' facial expressions and feelings. As children grow, they are constantly watching people around them, and they remember how to react. And this is how they learn proper social skills. This is why we are told to watch how we act around small children, because they tend to learn those social skills, and they take that to adulthood. In the early 1950s, psychologists were encouraging parents to give children less attention and affection in order to learn independence, but studies have shown that mere exposure to language, such as listening to the TV or to adults talking amongst themselves, prove little benefit. They concluded that infants need to interact directly with other human beings to hear people talk about what they are experiencing in order to form a healthy development of linguistic skills. Therefore, TV, computers, and video games should not be a substitute for human interaction. Another example to improve for humans interaction is Harry Harlow. He was a professor at the University of Wisconsin at Madison, and he decided to breed his own monkeys to save money for his research. But he had no idea how to raise monkeys, so he gave them plenty of food, warm blankets, and toys. He kept the monkeys in isolation so they wouldn't spread disease or infection. The monkeys grew up to be healthy and disease-free, but they were very disturbed. They would stare blankly into space and rock back and forth for long periods of time. They would circle their cages repeatedly, and they eventually mutilated themselves. When he saw this, he decided to test his theory. So he had two different groups of monkeys. He had a group of monkeys that were in isolation for 3 months and a group of monkeys that were in isolation for 12 months. And he decided to put them in a community. The 3 months of isolation, the monkeys were in an emotional shock when they were introduced to the community, but they eventually adjusted. But the monkeys that had been in 12 months of isolation did not adjust at all, and they isolated themselves permanently from the group, and they lived as outcasts for most of their lives. Adults and interaction. Adults with human interaction have better thought process. They can control their emotions better because they can rationalize thinking, and adults who regularly interact with others are generally happier. Two examples would be Terry Anderson and Frank Reed. Terry Anderson was the chief Middle East correspondent for the Associated Press, and on March 16, 1985, he was taken prisoner at gunpoint in Beirut. He received 3 meals a day and a bottle to urinate in and 1 10-minute trip to the bathroom a day. He was in total isolation except for the brief times that the guards would visit to threaten him or accuse him of breaking the rules. This went on for several years. He missed people, he was despondent and depressed. He soon began to feel like he was disintegrating. His brain was not working like it had. His mind was blank, and he ended up praying to Jesus to give him his mind back. 3 years into the ordeal, he finally snapped and began to beat his head against the wall until it was smashed and bleeding, and the guards finally stopped him. Frank Reed was in the same situation. He was a 54-year-old American private school director who was taken hostage and held in solitary confinement for 4 months. Reed became severely withdrawn and held in He lay motionless for hours, facing the wall, semi-catatonic. He could not follow the guard's simplest instructions. He would put up with the abuse of his captors because he felt that some human interaction was better than no human interaction. He was released after 3.5 years, but he required admission into a psychiatric hospital. Both of these men experiences are very extreme, but they both experienced lack of human interaction, and neither man fared well. Anderson and Reed were both prisoners of war, and their experiences do say something. Even adults need human interaction, especially if we have had human interaction most of our lives. When we are alone for long periods of time, it does do something to us. Anderson was forced into isolation, but even sailors that have chosen to go on long journeys by themselves say that the worst part is the loneliness. Reed had the same problem and even showed that negative interaction was better than no interaction. In conclusion, human interaction is one of the most important components for positive development. Through human interaction, humans gain good brain development, linguistic skills, good socialization skills, have good thought process, the ability to control their emotions, and are generally happier individuals.